code is immutable. The money is
The Genesis locked to the edge of the mempool. We are decoding Bitcoin's signal in the noise. Privacy, self-custody, censorship resistance. Welcome to the revolution. This is OnChain Revolution.
Welcome back to OnChain Revolution. My name is Yagobi, and I am the host of this channel and show. Welcome back after a crazy, chaotic weekend, right? With U.S. and Iran tensions that rose to a point of supposedly their supreme leader no longer being around, right? So we'll get into some of that stuff. But before I do, I got to post something really quick on my Abstract, because Abstract now is changing how they do things. So bear with me for 1 second here as I copy this link and send it over to Abstract. Hopefully you guys can watch the stream because I am trying to get that going for you guys. All right. And then we are also going to get into Bitcoin and why it potentially is going crazy, right? It looks like it's trying to knock on the door of $70,000. And the last time I remember a war happening, right, during the bear market, it absolutely crushed the markets, right? Bitcoin, Solana, everything got crushed in 2022 whenever we were, watching the events kind of take place with Russia and Ukraine. So we're going to hit on that as well. We'll get into some other topics, like, some headlines that seem bullish for Bitcoin, but that, depends on if this war situation doesn't really break, the markets down like it did in 2022. So far, it's just starting. So we got to see how this plays out. If it's a quick situation to where, whatever happens, right? The U.S. accomplishes their goal or whatever, then maybe we can play into the spring energy type situation. But Bitcoin is definitely looking strong, which has got a lot of people scratching their heads, right? But before we get into anything, I'm going to ask you guys to help me out by sharing this stream on the X side. If you could do that, that would help me a ton. Hit the like as well on the YouTube side. If you could hit the like, smash that like for me. And if you like my style and my content, subscribing helps for sure. Also, drop your comments and questions in the chat, and I will get to those accordingly. I want to say good morning to my TikTok audience, hopefully to my Abstract audience. It doesn't look like it is actually live streaming on the Abstract part. I don't understand why these platforms constantly switch things up. It drives me absolutely nuts. But good morning to the Zora audience as well. Hopefully we can get this Abstract thing going here, because really love the interaction I've been getting from Abstract. Maybe that's what it is right there. Update. Okay, we'll see if that worked. Anyhow, all right. Like I said, continually drop your questions and comments in the chat. But we will start things off with the market pulse like we do every single show. We got lots of cool stuff lined up today. At the end of the show, or towards the end, we're going to cover the Bitcoin ecosystem and talk potentially about what platform could be taking over Magic Eden Spot. There's a couple that are going to do it, but more than anything, that to me is bullish, because I see these builders coming out right now and they're being aggressive. I see Xverse and Casey Rodimer talking about, hey, this is what needs to happen for collection. So, not a knock on Counterparty or anything like that. I think Counterparty has amazing assets. They're the OG of Bitcoin NFTs, and some of their assets will be probably the most expensive in the Bitcoin art space. But the leadership in that area, Meta protocol, didn't really have the same energy from what I'm hearing from the historical references as Casey does and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens there. But again, starting off with the market pulse, let's see what we got for the chats. We got Almond Joy saying GM, and Justin from X saying GM as well. All right, let's see what is happening with the events that are scheduled for this week. Let's see if we have anything that is significant. All right. Today we just have the S&P final U.S. manufacturing PMI. We'll see. That actually was a pretty good number in January. It was 51.2. It's 51.6. So the PMI, manufacturing PMI, actually, this is interesting data that comes in, right? Oh, and then below it, the actual overall ISM manufacturing came in at 52.4, and the forecast was 52. So we are a little bit up. Now we are just a tiny bit back from January, which was 52.6. But if this continually increases, like I mentioned, it is pretty slow though. You know, I was thinking maybe 54%. If we get to like mid 55 to high 50, or high 50s, low 60s, that could be a risk off, a risk on asset kind of energy type environment, but it seems like it's moving kind of slow. So for the people that are wondering, what is the ISM? So it is a metric that they use to kind of show the manufacturing production, right? And when that goes up, that means that, the markets tend to go into a bit of a risk on situation. And then you got auto sales for today. Tomorrow, bunch of regional Fed stuff happening. Nothing burger, in my opinion, for that. Wednesday, we do got the ADP employment numbers. That's kind of a little bit significant here. Heading into Thursday, we have the initial jobless claims, like every single Thursday. But nothing really big. Friday, we'll have that unemployment report as well. So bigger than anything is it's more of what is happening with global tensions, right? What is happening with global tensions, and how are the markets responding to that, right? Let's take a quick look-see. As you can see real quick, Bitcoin is responding very well for some reason. It's at 69, almost 500 here. But taking a look at the stock market here, the S&P is down 0.23%. We got NASDAQ pulled back 0.25%. The Dow Jones pulling back 0.22%. The VIX is popping up. It's up 8.5%, meaning volatility is increasing. You got the DXY up 1.07%. The Russell pulling up 1.94%. The Mag 7 up 0.2%. Some of these big stocks, NVIDIA up 2% here. Google pulling back 2%. Apple barely up 0.1%, Tesla barely up 0.04%, and Netflix barely up 0.4%. So all in all, the stock market not really loving things, but not dumping super hard. Volatility has pulled up, and out of the giants, really, NVIDIA is the only one that is showing, strong strength. Now, U.S. oil, right, is pushing up. I wonder why. I'm just kidding. It's pretty obvious, right? This conflict is creating a oil price increase. As you can see, futures for oil is up 5.47%, while silver's pulled back 6.4% there. And then going into crypto having a strong day. Bitcoin is pulled up 5.66%, Ethereum pulling up 6% as well. Then you got the precious metals, gold kind of staying flat here, barely up 0.06%, while silver pulls back 6.55%. So overall, the markets seem to not care too much about what's happening, because stocks aren't getting beat down. They are just slightly down, and you got crypto up, and then precious metals kind of even here. So it's a little shocking, right? Because if some of these claims are true about what has happened, right, over in Iran, then I would think that that would be a pretty major event that would affect the entire market, financial market. But that's where we're at, guys. That is where we're at for the market pulse. One thing is, we've been taking a look at this chart here. So we've been looking at the weekly returns as well as the monthly returns for Bitcoin. And Bitcoin heading into March was on a 5-streak negative return rates or negative return percentage, I should say, for Bitcoin. You had October, November, December, January, and February. And then March is starting off green. That doesn't mean it will end green, but will we have a break in this cycle, right? It's only happened, let's see, once in 2018, to where it was longer than 4 months. And then we had another situation in 2014 where it actually got to 4 months. So we're sitting at 5 right now, right? So this is definitely in that rare category. But March does seem to give us a bounce up in terms of energy in Bitcoin and crypto. So we'll see if we get that. It's a decent start so far. Now going to the weekly returns, we just finished the 6th week in a row for Bitcoin going negative. Now we are starting the 9th week off green. So we'll see if we can also break this trend. So 2 trends right now with Bitcoin, negative percent returns need to be broken. And March, April is probably the best chance that that's going to happen, right? All right. Let's get into the main topic of the day, which I actually need to give me 1 second, update this real quick. It was one of those long weekends for me. I don't know about for you guys. How was y'all's weekend? It was a kind of a weird weekend for sure for me, but I'm glad to be back at it and hanging out with you guys. All right. So Bitcoin flashes massive reversal signal, possibly as chaos builds. Let's get into a little bit of this chaos that's building. So we'll get into some of this news here. It says, and this is from The Guardian, the U.S.-Israel war on Iran dramatically expands across the Middle East. So Saturday was when the airstrikes started to happen, right? And this article goes in and says, U.S. allies in Gulf states come under attack from Iranian missiles and drones as 3 U.S. fighter jets mistakenly shot down by Kuwait. So that's not good. One of our allies accidentally shoots our fighter jets down because there's so much chaos happening in there. It says the war in the Middle East, triggered by the joint U.S. and Israeli attack on Iran, expanded dramatically on Monday, with casualties and destruction reported across at least 9 countries in under 10 hours. Israeli and U.S. warplanes launched a fresh wave of strikes across Iran, where the Iranian Red Crescent Society said more than 500 people have been killed since the conflict began. Israel also launched an intense wave of attacks into Lebanon after Hezbollah struck at northern Israel in retaliation for the Israeli strike on Saturday that killed Iran's supreme leader. So that the Ayatollah supposedly is no longer, right? So this was kind of those attacks that were started by Israel on Saturday, right? So that's what kind of kicked things off. And it goes on to say Iranian attacks were reported on oil infrastructure and other targets across 2,000 kilometers swath of the region, with damage inflicted from the Gulf of Oman, where a bomb-carrying drone boat exploded against an oil tanker and to Cyprus, right? So oil is obviously shooting up because of all this stuff, right? Because accessibility to oil is going to be going down, all that stuff. But people like Bitcoin are these countries putting assets and resources into Bitcoin so they can be using, I guess, monetary assets without being, I don't know, so blatantly tracked, even though you can track Bitcoin and all that stuff. But anyways, so how long does this conflict continue? I think that is the big question, right? Because, if it's something that lingers on forever, then for a long time, then that is something that can definitely affect the markets, right? Bitcoin, Ethereum, all of the crypto markets, including the broader markets, right, with stocks and all that stuff as well. So we'll see if this continues on. I mean, it seems to be spreading. That's the problem. And also, I think by some of these U.S. allies in the Middle East kind of being attacked right now, they're probably not too happy about this whole situation. So, it seems very strategic that they are being attacked because they know that they are the allies of the U.S., right? They don't want them to be happy with the U.S., and it's also being spread out. You're talking about all the way Kuwait down to UAE area. And then, Saudi Arabia is right behind all of that stuff. So we're going to see if that happens, because Saudi Arabia is one of the, largest kind of friendly countries that we have over here. And it goes on to kind of talk about what Trump says. It says President Trump said new potential leadership in Iran has indicated they want to talk, and eventually he will talk to them. For now, Operation Epic Fury continues unabated, the official says. So hopefully we can calm that down there. All right, let's get into some other news here. More aligned with crypto stuff. I mean, this definitely has to do with crypto, what we just talked about there, but let's talk about what's been going on over the last let's say 24 to 36 hours, or 48 hours, I should say. All right, so you can see digital asset investment products recorded $1 billion in inflows last week, ending a 5-week $4 billion outflow streak, right? So this is big news because this is what's getting people bullish as well on the crypto and digital asset markets. Let me try to fix something really quick, guys. I just want to make sure that this abstract crew can join us. I don't know why that is not. Oh, that's why. Okay, sorry. Give me 1 second. 1 second. I'm gonna jump right back into it. But anyways, the ETF inflows, right, have been increasing over here in our space the past 2 weeks, right? And we had a really bad consistent outflow happening, and it's also kind of crazy because it all started to pick back up after the Jane Street investigation of manipulation, right? And that is what I feel like is kind of, these uh these investment firms, right? JP Morgan, Jane Street, all of them, the market makers and stuff like that, they don't want to be under the magnifying glass to where it's a consistent conversation of, basically Wall Street being able to manipulate Bitcoin's price and suppress it and all this stuff. And then next thing you know, we have these inflows coming in. I'm not saying that that's the direct effect of it, but I'm glad I could get you guys back in for the abstract crew there. But anyways, and so we got to keep watching this because this could be a really bullish movement that's happening because the institutions are starting to pour back into these ETFs. You see the inflow, going back to 1 billion. So already 25% kind of caught up from the 4 billion outflow. And if you think about the timing with March, April, that doesn't mean that things are going to turn around and all of a sudden Bitcoin and crypto and the digital asset space just is back on. We're back on. We're heading to the bull market. That is something I think that for me personally, I'm getting that out of my kind of habit, right? I don't, just because price rebounds short term, you got to zoom out and use these weekly charts, right? Monthly charts, and then see what the process looks like every cycle, downturn or upturn, right? What triggers need to be hit. But what this does, kind of make me feel like is that we probably get that typical spring thrust up, right, for the digital asset space. Now, again, the things that can kind of throw that off are this war. If it prolongs, I don't think it's going to be a long, lengthy situation, but who knows, right? It is war, and that can get very tricky. All right, now let's take a look at some other stuff here. The odds of the Fed not cutting rates in March have surged to 95.7%. I don't think this is a big shocker, right? Jay Powell he's basically on his way out. And there's some data that's come in that really isn't supporting for cutting, really, right? So he already had the mindset that he probably was going to keep things, paused. And so not really too much of a shocker here. I think more than anything, it's whenever the transition happens to the new Fed chair, does he become aggressive? And I think that changeover happens in May, right? And so we'll know pretty quickly if he is going to be a aggressive chair in terms of trying to get everybody to vote for cuts when that happens. But up until then, we're probably gonna have to expect no cuts. We're probably gonna have to expect a lot of boring situation, right? And so you can see here it's just shot up to 95.7. Also on good old poly market, it's very far away. So don't expect that. That's not going to help us in terms of, prices getting bullish. It's just going to be more of the switch over of ETF inflows and, some of that spring energy that might come into March and April to get prices going again. And that would, for me, that would be something like Bitcoin getting back to like 75,000, right? I don't think it recaptures the 50-day moving average on the weekly chart until later down the road, probably after the summer. But again, Bitcoin at 75,000 is going to show some energy, and maybe we'll see some of that from the alts as well. All right, let's get in some price action in crypto bubbles, starting with Bitcoin on the hour chart. Let's try to get a gauge of potentially where the price may head today. And like always, put your comments, questions in the chat. But when I do price bubbles and the price action, if there's any, if there is any tickers or anything that you want me to take a look at, just drop those tickers in the chat and I'll take a look at them for you. But let's take a look here at Bitcoin on the hour chart. Let's get a feel of what is happening. And it is very pumpy. It's very aggressive, right? So we had these, resistance and support levels before last week when I was talking about, what needed to happen so Bitcoin doesn't break down and try to get down to that 200 moving average, touching it at 60,000. And that was to stay above 64K, right? That 63, 64K. And it did. It did that. It did a great job of that. It went sideways, mostly kind of ranging down to like 65, and to the upside, it was more like 66, 7. Now we've broken out of that sideways and started a leg up. Now we are hitting that original resistance of 70,000 though, right? So this is more for like the 4-hour chart that I'm going to get to in a second. So I'll dig a little bit deeper then, but let's get a feel of what today looks like. And for so far, I mean, the MACD is looking really aggressive to the upside. I mean, you see 2 MACD candles on the 1-hour chart for Bitcoin. The fast line is pointing almost vertically up, straight up. And you see the stochastic RSI just racing to 100. It's sitting at 100 points right now on the fast line. So for me, this looks really strong. And it's just the 2nd-hour candle on the MACD as well. I mean, we're looking at 2 really strong hour candles to the upside. We're on the 3rd one right now. Does it persist? We might see a little bit of calming down here a bit. But if we ever had a chance to break through that $70,000 resistance, probably today is one of those times, right? Because, we're sitting at 69.59 right now. I can see a range back and forth between like this area and low 69, high 68s until it decides it wants to push back up. And right now it looks pretty aggressive. Actually, it's ranging right now to like 69.7. So it could be trying to make a push to try to crack that resistance. Now, I will say that resistance has been really strong though. You're going back to, let's see, the last time it broke it above there, you're going back to the middle of February. So we haven't broken above 70K since, and it wicked February 16th, right? Candles fully set are, you got to go back to, so the day before, right? Again, so that is what I'm looking for today. More upside, sideways a little bit, probably in the next 2 to 4 hours with maybe some upside push. Because again, this is only the 2nd-hour candle on the MACD. Let's take a quick look at the 4-hour. The 4 hours, the chart that I look at to kind of go off of these support and resistance levels, because it does give me a 2 to 3, 4 day forecast. The 4-hour chart gives me. And if you're looking here, it is stuck right at that $70,000 mark. But again, it's only the 2nd 4-hour candle. Okay. So we have a lot of time. There's a lot of potential here to break above 70K is what I'm saying for the next 2 days. Now that's if there isn't any crazy headline that reverses things. But as of right now, the momentum looks like it wants to break above the resistance, finish maybe some 4-hour candles above there. Might not happen today. Could happen tomorrow, maybe Wednesday, if this momentum continues this way. The MACD looks strong. It looked like it was about to die. The buy pressure was going to die early this morning at 2 a.m. and it popped back up extremely strong. The stochastics did as well. So it crossed back over the overbought territory barely, right? So I think we probably hang out here for some time, a bit, because it just started to cross back over. All right, let's take a look at the daily chart. Let's see what happens here. So the daily was going a bit sideways, going all the way back to the middle of February, right? Sideways in buy pressure, by the way. you know, for the MACD here, and it just was weak. It was weak, and today's the first day it's really popped up here strong. Let's see how it finishes today, because if it does finish strong today, we can have follow-ups this week, right? And then go into something that shows some strength for the buy pressure, you know, session, which again has been going on since the middle of February. Right, you're talking about the middle of February. Now, stochastic RSI has been up in this overbought territory for some time. It did dip to the middle of it here if you go back to last Tuesday, but it was very brief and it came back up. So I can see us hanging out here for a bit longer. Probably not like another 2 weeks, or I don't know, but we'll see how it plays out. You never know. Again, heading into that spring energy kind of time frame, we could show some strength here that kind of keeps us above this into the overbought territory. So that's Bitcoin for you. Let's take a quick look at Ethereum before we get into the alts with the crypto bubbles here. ETH looks very strong as well, right? Very much following Bitcoin as it has been really the last 6 months, but as of late, pretty much to a T. Every once in a while, it will kind of front run Bitcoin a little bit or just barely tail it. And on the hour chart, looks very similar. It looks, strong back to, $2,060. Will we get to 2,100? If Bitcoin wants to cross over 770K, I'm sure we will. Right. So it's going to, try to follow that lead is what I'm seeing. So hour chart for ETH looks very similar. 4 hour, same thing, a little bit weaker though on the 4 hour, in my opinion, but it did come out of buy pressure though. So it came out of buy pressure and now it's back pretty strong. So I like where ETH is as well on the 4 hour chart. Very similar thesis that I have for Bitcoin, right? That I do for ETH right now. Daily, same thing, popped back up, showing a little bit stronger candle. So again, ETH had a little bit of a lead back last Wednesday, Thursday, then ahead of Bitcoin in terms of strength to the upside a little bit, kind of came back down. Now it's back to that level of last Wednesday. So just a tiny bit behind Bitcoin right now, but hey, that's what's supposed to happen, right? With Ethereum, whenever it's like pretty much waiting for Bitcoin's next move. All right, let's take a look here at the crypto bubbles. Crypto bubbles. All right, crypto bubbles. Getting into the top 100 here. All right, so in the top 100, we got lots and lots and lots of green. Lots of green. You're looking at about 97% green push up in the alt market in the top 100 tokens. The largest winners of today is Near Protocol up 13.1%. You got Virtuals up 9.4%. You got Pump up 6.4%. Jupiter up 9.1%. Morpho up 9.4%. Pippin up 3%. What else is sticking out here? Dash up 5%. So some of the privacy pushing up here. You got Tau, big AI play, up 6.1%. Aave up 7.7%. Hyperliquid up 5.5%. Jupiter up 9%. ICP up a modest 2.7% there. Tezos is up 1.8%. HBAR up 2.3%. Arbitrum up 4.4%. Filecoin up 3% here. Solana up 4%. Doge up 2.4%. You got Kite pulling back, biggest loser of the top 100, pulling back almost 11% here, 10.8%. Pancake Swap pulling up 3.7%. Curve Finance up 5.1%. And that is going to pretty much round out the top 100. Zcash, that's another one in the privacy sector, only up 1% there. And Pepe, the meme from 2023, I believe it was, up 3.8%. All right, looking at the top 200 here, you got Siren up 72.6%. I think this might be a Virtuals project here. You got Robo up 56.7%. The ones in the between 100 to 200, sometimes you'll see some weird names because there'll be a meme that pops up in here that's new. BVV up 24.1%. You got Power pulling back again, 10.7%. Now, Power is one of those tokens that's kind of newer to the entire broader crypto space, right? Probably the last couple of years, but they have a big unlock coming up. So we're going to get into some of these unlocks that are happening very, very soon. And they're one of them, right? They are one of them. And so maybe that's what people are doing. They're trying to sell before this big unlock happens, or maybe it happened. I got to look at the chart that we're going to look at in a second. Anyways, other winners in the top 100 to 200, Pulse X up 8%. Justin Sun's protocol here on his Tron chain up 4.6%. Stacks Bitcoin up 3.3%. River up 6.8%. So most all on in the top 100 to 200 also up. You're looking at more like a 94%, just very minimally different than the top 100, right? Fartcoin up 4.3%. That is always a good day when Fartcoin is up, though. All right. So that is Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the crypto bubbles for you guys. All right. Let's take a look at what we got next. So this is kind of a big deal here. Ex-head of product, Nikita Bier, he's been in a lot of conversations lately. He came out with a announcement. So everybody's been wondering why, the crypto space and digital asset Web3 space has been, I feel like, almost kind of suppressed on X the past 2-3 months. And then I would say about 3 weeks ago, Nikita Bier kind of came out and said, hey, we're doing a lot of things to try to build the quality of content on X to make it better, right? And so this is one of the things that they're doing. And so Nikita Bier comes out and says, paid partnership labels on posts, and confirmed that, wait, he says, sorry, announces paid partnership labels on posts and confirmed that crypto is not included in the prohibited list, right? So you have to basically be very transparent with your paid promotions, with all of your, crypto posts, if you are an influencer, anybody really that's getting paid, right? So that is one of the big stories that's going on right now in the space. I'm going to show his post. If I can show it here, we can get into it a little bit deeper. But what does this change? It changes a lot of things, in my opinion. The prohibited industries, it says the following content categories are not eligible for paid partnership promotion. It's adult and sexual products, okay. Alcoholic beverages, contraceptives, dating and marriages, marriage services, drugs. I think that's like mail order brides, the dating and marriage services, drugs, of course, geopolitical, health and wellness, pharmaceutical, tobacco and tobacco related, weapons and weapons related, weight loss. So they're not in the prohibited industries, but they do have to be very transparent when it comes to if their posts are paid partnerships. And I think that's big because there's been so many, accounts that have 6-figure followings, right? You're talking about 100,000, following counts and bigger, leading up to 1 million, that don't include that, right? They just kind of start shilling tickers, and next thing you know, like, they have 100,000 followers that are, buying everything that they're suggesting and all these things. And they don't want that to be a regular thing anymore, right? I think it's great for the space. But I wonder almost how much they can actually enforce this, right? I think they're going to probably have to take a lot of assumptions initially with this approach and assume if there's large accounts that are constantly talking about certain tickers over and over, they're going to flag them. That's the only way that I can, think that they can really try to enforce this, right? Now, I don't think that is a long-term, workable strategy, because you're going to constantly have people complaining with their accounts being flagged. Some people might leave and all these things. But what they're trying to do with this is they are trying to make X, because they're making it the everything app. That's what Elon's goal is, right? He wants to make it professional looking, especially when it has to do with payments. Payments is a big part of his overall strategy and goal for X. And so I think, X in itself is going to take a lot of revenue probably, either away from how the old way of promoting in the digital asset space was, or just in general, they are, they can be a monster. They can do whatever they want in this situation. Crypto Twitter has been the place for digital assets, Web3 and crypto for so long. It's where else are people going to go? People have been talking about TikTok as a, pretty good place for crypto. I think it is if you like to live stream constantly. So that's why I'm, trying to build up the TikTok audience, and hopefully StreamYard can integrate TikTok so I can start chatting with you guys better, because I'm running a command center right now. But back to the X situation, that's kind of what's happening, right? So, I do think that this is going to be good. Now, the problem where I see that this needs to also enforce is you have large entities that, whether, I'm just going to give an example, right? Let's say Binance. Let's say someone is, Binance wants to pay influencers to FUD something or whatever. I'm not saying this happened. This is hypothetical, right? But how are they going to get caught with that? It's almost kind of like, yes, this is a good intention type of approach, but like, where does the enforcement come in? And I think that that's where we got to also, put the resources and attention on, is these large institutions, or entities, because they're the ones that can really crush projects as well and stuff like that. All right, we're going to get into a little bit of AI stuff here, because AI is a hot topic constantly. You guys are probably constantly in your Claude or ChatGPT, or maybe some of you guys are building out your open clause and stuff like that. But the U.S. military, the administration wasn't happy with Anthropic and said that they weren't going to utilize Anthropic, but they did. It says the U.S. This is an article from Cointelegraph, and it says U.S. military used Anthropic in Iran strike despite ban order by Trump. And this is Wall Street Journal, I think, wrote this. And it says the U.S. military reportedly relied on Anthropic's Claude AI for intelligence analysis and targeting during an Iran strike hours after Trump ordered a ban on the company's system. That's pretty funny. It says the U.S. military reportedly used Anthropic during a major airstrike on Iran only hours after President Trump ordered federal agencies to halt use of the company's systems. The military it says military commands, including U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, in the Middle East, used Anthropic's Claude AI model for operational support, according to people familiar with the matter cited by the Wall Street Journal. The tool has reportedly assisted with intelligence analysis, identifying potential targets, and running battlefield simulation. So if anybody out there has been doubting, this recent move and claims of, how effective and efficient AI is, I think this story really shows what the truth is here, right? If you go back to 2022, when ChatGPT really first started to come on the scene to where we are today, I mean, we're worlds of, it's a worlds of difference, right? And also it's moving at in an alarming rate, in terms of alarming in the sense of, we don't know what, if you move too fast, what the consequences are, but it is definitely being used in military operations, right? So can you trust it to, help with your workflow? I mean, I guess you would consider this workflow as well, right? In a sense, right? So this is interesting. And it also kind of lets me see that, like, what all the hype and stuff about AI recently is true. And it, I definitely have been working on my OpenClaw and workflow and stuff, and I feel it. There are some certain things that I wish it was better at, but I think it will continually get better. If it's good enough for this, then we're definitely moving fast to the future. All right, this next topic right here, and by the way, I do want to address. I did not make a members only video this Sunday. I will be making two this week. This weekend was just really crazy for me. I just want to put it out there. You know, I was helping out with a show this weekend, and it's just Sunday was kind of a stressful day for me. So I will be putting that out early this week, either by tomorrow, the first one, and the next one will be on Sunday. So apologize for that. I just got caught up. I'm human too, right? So appreciate you guys hanging with me. But all right, let's talk about this token unlock situation that's about to happen. It says over $5.8 billion worth of tokens to be unlocked in March, led by Rain, which is 338 million, ASTER 56 million, and then Sui at 48.65 million. So this was the situation when I was in the crypto bubbles a second ago. I was talking about Power Protocol. They have a $23 million unlocking. So we hit on the token unlocking not long ago. I want to say maybe 2 weeks ago. But this is another reminder. So if you're in any of these tokens, or you're thinking about them, or you want to play them, then here you go. You can see this is the entire list, right? You got Rain unlocking 338 million on March 10th. So 8 days from now. 3.25% of the market cap is being unlocked March 10th. So that's a big unlocking there. Then you got ASTER, which everybody knows what ASTER is. Well, if you don't, ASTER is a leverage perps platform pretty much backed by CZ and Binance. CZ mentioned ASTER. I think it's the third token he's ever talked about, maybe outside of Bitcoin and BNB. Anyways, 56.02 million. 1% of the total market cap. That is happening March 17th. So just know, you know, these unlocks, they do affect, you know, the volume, the volume, all that stuff. So Sui comes in third here at 48.65 million, which is half a percentage point of the market cap is at 0.54, so a little bit more than half. And so that is already happened. That happened yesterday. So if you were in Sui, that happened. Layer 0 comes in 45.45 million. And this is probably why Layer 0 has been kind of back and forth hopping a little bit, because Layer 0 has been in headlines. Institutions love what Layer 0 is doing. It's almost kind of like a chain link fill. And but they have $45 million unlock that is happening in 18 days. So maybe not too much has to do with kind of the back and forth, because it is 18 days and it's been back and forth the past 2 weeks a little bit. But as time goes on and the infrastructure continually builds out, the companies that these institutions continually are bullish on, I'm keeping my eye on them. Layer 0 is one of them, right? So definitely an interoperability infrastructure too for RWA. You got to remember that. That's probably why they love them. You know what I mean? So all right, I got a message that says, can you message me after the stream? Sure. From North. Interesting. All right. Okay. Then you got Lombard, right? Lombard is oh, let me pull that back up. Sorry. Lombard is doing their unlock. So Lombard is a builder from the Bitcoin ecosystem. They're doing an unlock, $25.16 million worth of unlock. So 2.53% of the total market cap. So this is pretty big of the market cap, right? Just kind of like the Rain one up there, but 25 million from Lombard. Lombard has a pretty good, you know, I would say a lot of people that have assessed them, they've gotten pretty decent reviews back. They have a wrapped Bitcoin, I believe that's out in the EVM verse there. Then you got Power Protocol unlocking $23.404 million worth, which is 1.2% of the market cap. Pump Fund 19.07. So their unlocks are starting to get smaller. They have huge investors, by the way. I'm not sure if you guys know that. From my understanding, Peter Thiel was a investor in Pump for their ICO situation that when they launched on Bitget, I think. Anyways, 1% of the market cap being unlocked the 14th. So you got about 12 days for that one. And then River, which is kind of like this platform that allows you to buy Bitcoin, DCA, those type of things. They have an unlock 18.42%, which is $18.42 million, which is 1.36% of the market cap on March 22nd. And then you got stable here at $16.97 million being unlocked, which is 4% of the total market cap. So the largest market cap ratio being unlocked on the 16th of March. So be careful with all of these situations here. If you believe in them long term and all that stuff, no problem, right? But just know that this is happening here. All right. Next thing up here, we got Arthur Hayes back in the news. Arthur Hayes. What we got says Justin Arthur Hayes argues that a prolonged U.S.-Iran conflict could push the Fed to print money, ultimately sending Bitcoin higher. Yeah, I mean it could, right? That could be a situation. Man, he definitely looks like he'd be stressed. You see up here in this area. Hey, look, I'm not anybody. I got a lot of salt and pepper in mine too, though. But anyways, he's just losing too, though. So am I. Anyways, Arthur Hayes, he was correct about a couple different things in 2025. I think he missed his longer term target, or like the bull market target of Q4 originally that he talked about in 2024, but he readjusted a lot of stuff, right? He also did pretty much, I feel like he played the Monad launch pretty well, because he was kind of bullish on it and then fudded it and then it dumped. So he played that pretty well. But Arthur is well known, in the space for a long time, right? And what would this do if it prolonged? I don't think it would be good for the space, but I mean, the space responded. Bitcoin responded to trying to crack $70,000 the first Monday after the conflict started, right? So, I mean, who knows, right? Who knows? Definitely, maybe it was, if you look back in 2022, I think it was, whenever Russia and Ukraine, initially the markets didn't like it, and then overall after time went on, kind of got calloused and stuff. That wasn't really that much of an effect anymore. This is a little different. The markets really liked it in the beginning. We'll see what happens if it prolongs, but nevertheless, I mean, the Fed, I think we're going to see what type of energy they have in May whenever this new chair comes in, right? The current Fed, they'll print money if they have to print money, but I just don't think they're going to be aggressive in terms of any risk on type scenarios, right? So we'll see if Arthur Hayes is right again. He was right in the second half of 2025. That is for sure. What else we got? Cheer. Let's see here. All right, I got a chat from Abstract from 1E15 says, GM, sup brothers, what is up? What is up? Hope you guys are doing well, staying blessed during these crazy times in society when we think Bitcoin is going down because of world events and it goes up whenever the alt market never triggers. A bunch of crazy stuff happening, right? A bunch of crazy stuff. But this right here, right, cheer, is interesting. Does Germany have a chance to buy back in? So this is from Cointelegraph. We all made fun of Germany when they sold at those low prices and then missed out on being able to sell their Bitcoin when it got to 126,000, when it got to 100,000, when it got to 115,000, right? Like we were laughing, but Germany sold at 52.96 thousand per Bitcoin, per single Bitcoin. They sold for 52,096. Now we're sitting at 60. We were sitting higher now, but we were at 66,000. So it would be pretty funny if it did get back to that price. And then also, would Germany even, start buying again? That's going to be interesting, or start acquiring. I don't know if they were, the Bitcoin that they had was from seized Bitcoin or whatever, but it'd be so funny if they started to buy again, because they saw how high it went to 126. But yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. All right, some adoption news here. Steak and Shake announces it will pay all hourly employees a Bitcoin bonus of 21 cents per hour starting March 1st. This is pretty cool, right? 21 cents per hour, right? So if Bitcoin in the long run, gets to $1 million, which most everybody thinks it will, whether it takes, getting to like 2035 or whenever it happens, right? And these Steak and Shake employees are just kind of like, well, that's 21 cents. That's 21 cents. I'm not going to worry about that. Just let that build up or whatever. Hey, it could turn into something, right? Maybe not too much, because if you're looking at a what would that be? So at like 65,000, you're looking at like about a 13x or something like that to get to $1 million. So 13x times 21 cents, but it's per an hour and you forget about it, right? So, but I just think it's pretty cool in general that they are continually integrating Bitcoin into their infrastructure, right? They were one of the first fast food chains that said, hey, we'll take Bitcoin for payment and those type of things there. Yep. All right. Let's get into this. All right. So this is some positive news, hopefully for you guys. We'll see. But it says Bitcoin has entered the likely bottom. Bitcoin has entered the likely bottom. Okay. You can see on this chart here from Cointelegraph that we peaked at the very expensive part right here at 126. We saw this big drawdown here where it said it's still expensive. So these are ratings, right? And then popped up, and then we dropped into likely bottom zone. So the fact that likely bottom zone is right under expensive, I don't know. I just feel like that we might go into unlikely a little bit, So basically, where this is showing the price point is 67,000, 67,161, and the unlikely starts at 52,000. So could we get to 52,000? Absolutely, we could, but we would need these black swans to really start to pile on to get there, in my opinion, and then we could go lower. Right? At least like one black swan gets us to like 50, the low 50s, and then we'll see if that continues. But hey, Cointelegraph's chart says that we're likely in the bottom. And let me pull up the Bitcoin weekly chart so I can kind of show you guys where my gauge is of where we currently are, by the way. And you can see on the weekly chart right here, I have Bitcoin, or I have the moving averages indicator. I have the 50, the 100, the 50-day, 100-day, and 200-day, right? And so if this is the bottom, if this is likely the bottom, then we are going to range between 60 and 70 for a good amount of time until, and actually let's kind of see what the previous cycle showed us, how long this kind of scenario, because very, very similar to these other scenarios here, right? So getting into, all right, let's say whenever it first, let's say whenever it first got down to the 200 moving average to when it recaptured the 50-day moving average. So that is 182 days. Let me actually zoom in here to get this perfectly accurate. Okay, so move this down here. Okay, so we recaptured right here because we finished the candle above it. So 161 days, okay? 161 days. And this is the bear market of 2018 and 2019. And then if you go, all right, I'm just gonna move this over to where we are right now. Okay, so the first candle that we pretty much captured that, right? 161 days. That was on the first day that, or the first a week that we touched the 200 moving average. I give it a touch because it was 60K. It's like right there. And going 161 days, Bam. That puts us in July, mid-July, to where we can start. If we recapture that 50-day moving average, obviously it's not going to be exactly the same, right? It can be a variance of 20 days or whatever. But because I think when I did the 2022 was a little bit prolonged. Maybe it was like, yeah, when we first recaptured it, it was a lot longer. You're looking at like 250 because of the like we dipped 33% below the 200 moving average on that one. But the 2013 and 2018 bear markets, after we touched that 200 moving average, both around that 160 to 180 days, right? So regular cycle, not COVID induced cycle situation, right? So you're looking at like mid-July. I think it's going to be longer than that. I think we go into probably the end of the summer, maybe heading to the end of summer. But even if we did recapture the 50-day moving average in middle of July, that doesn't mean we automatically right then and there recapture the 100-day. You know, we could take another month for that. And then we start to move up, right? So yeah, I do think that we are out of most of the nastiness, but we could have some nastiness, you know, in the summer. We could have some nastiness in the summer. That is for sure. The last thing I'm going to touch on here is not the best news, and then we'll hit on some Bitcoin ecosystem stuff, which should be kind of exciting. I mean, it's just more about like who is going to take the place of Magic Eden. But all right, so Metaplanet has now gone 7 weeks without adding Bitcoin to its holdings. So what is happening with Metaplanet? Why are they not buying Bitcoin, right? That is a little bit of a worry situation. Now, they don't have the same strategy as MicroStrategy, right? They don't have that, you know, we got to buy no matter the situation type of situation. They're a lot more strategic, I feel like, in terms of not trying to put a lot of pressure on themselves as well, you know, as their board and everybody, right? So I can kind of understand that. But if you go to Cointelegraph, you can actually see that I did see that here it is. While Metaplanet isn't buying any for the past 7 weeks, Michael Saylor is a crazy person. It says strategy buys 3,015 Bitcoin at an average price of 67,700, totaling at 204.1 million. They now hold 720,737. So as Metaplanet's not buying, Michael Saylor says, okay, it's okay. I'll buy for you. I'll buy ours and then some. So, you know, it just depends on how you look at it. I think that as long as Saylor and Tom Lee, Saylor's buying Bitcoin, Tom Lee's buying Ethereum, I think we're okay. When they stop buying, I think we got a big problem, right? We got a big problemo. All right, let's get into some of this Bitcoin ecosystem stuff. So the big story is who's going to replace Magic Eden, right? Magic Eden, for the audience that doesn't know what I'm talking about Bitcoin ordinals, which are like Bitcoin NFTs. If you're familiar with the space, you know, the overall crypto space, and you get pretty deep into it, you know what I'm talking about. And so Magic Eden, which started on Solana back in 2021, I think, maybe even before that, they were known for NFTs on Solana and these type of things. Whenever Bitcoin ordinals became popular in 2023, because Casey Rotemer created this meta protocol on Bitcoin, Magic Eden was one of the first big entities to kind of gamble on the space, and they won big. They're the main platform to really you know, adopt Bitcoin ordinals. It became a huge thing. There was $6 billion of on-chain economy at one point with Bitcoin ordinals. But they recently announced that they are discontinuing Bitcoin support along with Ethereum support. And so they're cutting the Bitcoin and EVM wallet side. And in fact, they're discontinuing their entire wallet. They have a Magic Eden wallet. So this was a huge shift for them. And they're doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on a gambling application and going back to just only supporting Solana Solana's tech stack. So with that being said, there was a lot of platforms that actually got excited because now they can try to take that spot. Because when ordinals are hot, it was actually the number one. It made Bitcoin the number one blockchain for digital art for a month or so, right? But it was always number one and two between Ethereum after ordinal started. So it was a big difference. It was a huge shift. And so who's going to take the place of Magic Eden? There's a couple of accounts that have come out. I think Unisat came out and they're trying to offer some sort of, no fee situation and stuff like that. So they saw the opportunity. I also believe OKX came out and they are talking about, trying to take advantage of this as well. And then you have some smaller, but like continually building type of platforms. Ordinal Hive is one that I'm really bullish on because the founder Fonzie continually, hosts spaces. He's really passionate about the Bitcoin ecosystem. I know Ordinal's wallet's going to try to push hard for this. You have, some other areas, that service kind of other meta protocols that are trying to push for this as well. So whoever ends up winning this by the kind of community, the Bitcoin community, ecosystem community, I think they're going to end up doing really well. We're actually going to have Fonzie, the founder of Ordinal Hive, tomorrow on at 10:30 Central, right, to talk about Ordinal Hive and kind of this opportunity, what they've been doing, what they've been building, and things like that. So we can dive into that tomorrow as well. But I'm bullish on ordinals because I think Bitcoin assets are the most collectible type of assets. Some of these Ethereum NFTs for sure are, CryptoPunks, the ones on chain and all those things definitely are as well. And you see, but the collectability, there's no match in my opinion. My family does collectibles. My brother's a huge name in the collectible industry. He actually had Cooper Flag at his shop yesterday, or not yesterday, last week. And so we know collectibles. I mean, that's in our blood. And the collectability of rare sats and early inscriptions and things, you don't have that anywhere else. Stan says, will the Magic Eden retreat push ordinal scarcity? So one thing that we're seeing is a bunch of community members get together, like Jan from Xverse, talking about how basically, these ordinal collections need to start creating galleries, right? Because there's the ordinal indexer, right, that Casey created. So ordinals will be indexed as long as there's an inscription number, all that stuff, that's fine. But when you rely on a centralized entity like Magic Eden to have their own kind of centralized indexing as well, and then the marketplace goes away, there needs to be a way for you to kind of have your collection all together and stuff like that. So they're all working very fast together. Thing about Casey is I've been seeing him the most active that I've seen him the entire time on X, because he wants to the feeling that I'm getting is he wants to reassure everybody, hey, look, the ordinals aren't going away. They're, in fact, like, this will probably be a really good phase for them, another push up, another next level, because we're, you can say what you want about Magic Eden. Some people say they were here for the cash grab. They made a lot of cash. I mean, that's what kind of entities do in crypto, right? They'll see like a narrative, they'll go in, they'll make their money. Probably can't hate them too much on that part, but like, they're, once that, it's slowed down some, they're out, right? So the people that aren't out, those are the people that are going to make the space even stronger the next time that fungibles on Bitcoin, Bitcoin runes, BRC20s, and ordinals, the next time those run, they're going to be like backed by these people that are still here. And there's a good amount of people here. That is for sure. So hopefully that answers your question there, Stan. But All right, guys. I think that is going to wrap it up. Had a good showing on X. I'm not sure about YouTube and all that stuff, but again, I appreciate all your support. Hopefully, you guys on the abstract, I got Tuka's NFT says what's up, says hi. Shout out to you guys. You guys are awesome, huge supporters of the show, and I really appreciate that. Shout out to Zora, to Rumble, to of course YouTube and X. You guys are amazing. It's not the easiest of times, I'll tell you that, for people that have conviction in our space. It's actually one of the hardest of times. Especially if you work in the space, and if you're a community member that tries to learn every single day, that counts as well, because the space just didn't have a ton of opportunities in 2025, parts of 2024, and that was tough. That was really tough. You had to really try to find a way to, if it was your livelihood, you had to find a way to build a revenue model. And if you look, I actually suggest you guys to do research, and you look at the revenue that was created by entities in our space, and you're going to see a short list, other than the legacy stuff, the Aves and stuff that's been around forever. That's going to continue because they have reoccurring business for loans and staking and things like that, right? I'm talking about like people that worked in the space. I mean, look at Magic Eden. They're cutting down because of the costs, right? They were huge. I mean, I'm sure at some point they were making millions every single day. And that's another thing too. It's like you compare Web3 revenue to like TradFi, it's not comparable. Yeah, not yet. Like Hyperliquid, for example, is making like under $1 million in fee revenue a day. To me, that's so small, but they're one of the largest in our space, right? I mean, go look at other entities in TradFi. You'll be able to see like what I'm talking about here. But with that being said, I have a lot of faith in the future of this industry. I think it's getting cleaned up. Unfortunately, it's happening by way of TradFi strong arming the space, but you just got to be smart. You got to figure out where you can fit in. Where can you make a new opportunity? There's going to be more opportunities that come out that look completely different from opportunities from the last bull market in 2021 and 2020, and completely different than the last bull market before that in 2017. Because things are becoming very infrastructure corporatized a bit, but there will be opportunity. You got to look at it almost kind of like the .com shift, the bubble after it shifted, right? There's in the late 2000s still like thousands of startup e-commerce sites and all these things, and and you still had opportunity to get into those before they started to blow up and become huge. And that's what we're going to have here as well. But I appreciate you guys hanging out with me on a Monday. Great way to start the week is to kick it with you guys. My job situation is kind of, training, this, that, and the other. So scheduling is going to be tough. Again, I will put out that members video by tomorrow for last week. But thanks for hanging out with me. And until tomorrow, peace.